Okay, so following on from Paul Kent's sacking by the Daily Telegraph and Fox Sports in Australia, following being charged with Affray by New South Wales Police, he's pled guilty to the charges. So basically, his legal team, after his initial court hearing, put forward a motion to the judge that they wanted a pause in legal proceedings at the time, so Paul Kent could go through alcohol addiction rehabilitation and also seek help for mental health issues. Now, the judge initially granted that for 6 weeks. However, his court hearing was, today. They put forward a motion to the judge to say, can we have the charges dropped if he continues to go through alcohol addiction rehabilitation and continues to seek mental health help and medical professional help. The judge threw out that request and said no, a criminal trial will proceed, at which point Paul Kent either was advised by his legal team or chose to plead guilty to the charge of Affray. Now, the Australian legal system is based upon the legal system here in the UK. Now, we have three legal systems here in the UK. We have the English legal system that covers the jurisdiction of England and Wales. We have the Scottish legal system that covers Scotland, and we have a legal system in Northern Ireland, which is significantly different, but again based upon the same principle of law set out from Westminster. Now, the Australian legal system, as I say, is similar. There are some very unique differences, and he was charged, I believe, under the New South Wales Criminal Code, which will differ from other states and territories in Australia. There's federal laws and then there's state and territory laws. Now, he's been given a 2-year conditional discharge, which is very similar to here over in the UK. There will be conditions attached to it, including like an alcohol ban, for example. Potentially, he cannot be in a licensed premises after a certain time. Regular alcohol and drugs testing, for example. There could be other conditions attached to his conditional discharge. And I know there'll be those who will be quite shocked that he hasn't received a criminal record for what happened on April the 27th. No suspended sentence, no custodial sentence. But he's been given this. This is what the judge has decreed. Now, the debate about the New South Wales criminal code and the Australian justice system, that's a debate for the History Boffin channel. It's not a debate for this channel. And there will be those who, there are shortcomings in any legal system, but that's what the judge has decided to hit Paul Kent with. Where that leaves him in regards to his media career, I think his media career is done. In regards to his alcohol addiction and mental health, clearly, I believe it's been part of the conditional discharge that he must continue to receive medical help in regards to his alcohol addiction and to continue to go to addiction services and also to continue to receive mental health care as well. I believe that is part of this 2-year conditional discharge, which is again very, very similar to what you get here in the UK where I'm from, where a court can order that you do attend drug and alcohol rehabilitation. I should know, I've done it myself, and you can have a court order, and if you fail to adhere to that court order, that conditional discharge, that's where you may start seeing criminal penalties attached. Now, in this 2-year period, he has to be squeaky clean. He cannot have any infractions or any run-ins with the law, and that includes an unpaid parking ticket, all the way up to obviously more serious offences. But any minor infraction could see him back in court, at which point that conditional discharge disappears, and then suddenly you can start seeing heavy fines, suspended sentences and custodial sentences. So basically he's got to be a good boy. If the magistrate sees him in court again, or it goes higher to Crown Court level for anything, and I mean anything, from a minor parking infraction to a speeding ticket to an unpaid parking fine, all the way up to being in breach of his conditional discharge, because there'll be things attached to that, then yes, you could see suspended sentences, fines, criminal record, potentially custodial sentences, depending on the severity of what the police have been called out for. But I think this is his media career done. And last year, when he was suspended over the assault allegations and facing those assault charges, I mentioned a former sports journalist here in the UK who sadly passed away now, Frank Boff. I also mentioned Ron Atkinson, amongst others, who never got charged with any criminal offence, never had to go to court, but they basically killed their media careers stone dead. Now, Frank Boff, again, very similar to Paul Kent, got sacked by the BBC, got employed by ITV later on, got sacked by ITV, and it was basically to do with allegations concerning his private life. Now, no criminal charges were ever brought, but he basically publicly... he had this squeaky clean family image. He was the host on Grandstand, for example, and this squeaky clean image on national TV, a well-known broadcaster, obviously, with the BBC, and privately he was having multiple affairs, and it was caught in an undercover media sting in a house of ill repute with a woman, not his wife, who was paid for her services, is the best way to describe the situation Frank Boff found himself in, but the BBC basically sacked him. What came out after he died, and after also he was sacked not only from the BBC, but he also tried to come back with ITV, and the same allegations surfaced that he was still using sex workers and drugs, was that he was a serial womanizer, sleazy, and wasn't a particularly nice individual who didn't have a squeaky clean image, really. And his media career, he was done. And this is before social media, this is before camera phones, this is before the World Wide Web was, and the internet was really accessible to your average working class person. Frank Boff was done. Fast forward a decade or so, Ron Atkinson. Ron Atkinson, famous for coaching Manchester United and Oxford United, playing his entire footballing career for Oxford United, and then going on to being a commentator and pundit for Sky Sports, and for a brief period Channel 5 as well, I believe, in the late 90s, towards the end of the existence of the Cup Winners' Cup. Whilst he was employed by Sky Sports over here in the UK, sister channel and a sister network to Fox Sports in Australia, he had a hot mic. It was off camera, but his mic was still turned on. And he made racial slurs about Marcel Desailly, who was then the Chelsea captain. There was a lot of racial slurs were made. He was sacked immediately. He was done, caught on a hot mic. He was never employed by anyone else. Andy Gray was another one. There's been quite a few high-profile sports journalists over here in the UK, but they're the two examples I use because their media careers never recovered. They were basically blacklisted from every radio station, TV station, newspaper. They couldn't get work anywhere. And Ron Atkinson's still alive, but he's not been able to get back on the TV or the radio. His days of being a football pundit and a commentator are over. But again, not gone to court, but killed their careers stone dead. Others, very, very similar. We've seen drink driving, we've seen assault, we've seen other more serious charges. Some have recovered and had that redemption story, others haven't. Now, in Paul Kent's case, because it's been public knowledge now that there is alcoholism there and other addiction potentially use of controlled substances, and of course, because he's been in court and it's on camera and he's had multiple court cases now, I can see it being very, very difficult on a PR standpoint with a broadcaster in Australia picking up his services, because advertisers will be very, very wary now of advertising, because Australian media is heavily reliant on the advertising revenue, much like the media here here in the UK, and advertisers will be going, we don't want to be associated with said network, we may pull our support and our sponsorship, for example. And in an age of a very competitive media age and the rise of social media, that is a big thing. Money talks. So I will see what happens, but he's been given a 2-year conditional discharge, and he pleads guilty to Affray. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. The view counts on the sacking video have gone through the roof. It's the most popular video on the channel. Subscriber numbers have gone through the roof. The view hours have gone through the roof. Basically, Paul Kent's done this channel a massive favour over the last 2 years by basically being a bit of a tool, really. And it's sad to see, like, his decline and the rise and fall, because before COVID he was combative, controversial, but I wouldn't say he was a particularly disliked figure in the way he's become. There were those who never liked him, but he was good quality on NRL 360. Since 2021, 2022, I've I've liked him less and less as a person, and I'm agreeing with him less and less as a journalist in regards to NRL 360. I don't particularly rate his newspaper column, but the rise and fall of Paul Kent has been quite rapid, and especially over the last 2.5 years, it's been very, very noticeable that there's been a lot of allegations of alcohol-related violence against him. Basically, it's not. This is the latest in a long string of incidents that go back over the last 2 to 3 years. Mark Geyer, Anthony Maroon, KO Sports launch day, the domestic violence allegations, and now the pub brawl that he was involved in. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on Paul Kent getting a conditional discharge and pleading guilty to Affray in the comment section below. The comment section on the sacking video were very, very colourful and very mixed as well. There was a good balance between those who are sad to see him lose his job and those who were like, well, he should have lost his job back in 2022 after the Triple M incident, when it was clear that he was basically bullying Anthony Maroon. He was basically being nasty towards a fellow colleague who then felt that Triple M did not support him, who then quit the station, and then he refused to apologise and quit the station. So a totally innocent party loses their job, has to lose their job. So this is not a one-off incident with Paul Kent. This is a string of incidents. It's not isolated, and it's very, very concerning. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.